Hello and welcome to Face Off. It's hard to believe it, but Valentine's Day was once meant for single people. In medieval times, maidens would hide in their villages waiting for the boys to find them. Any couple that hit it off would then be challenged to marry by the end of the year. Well, that sort of excitement has long gone out of February the 14th. Nowadays, it's mostly commercial, of course, and aimed at existing couples, reminding singles of what they don't have. And many established couples freely admit that they don't really enjoy it. So why do people do it? Well, to discuss that, I'm joined today by Ginger Strickland from the American Church in Paris. Good morning to you. Also, freelance journalist Iris Hartle, who's just written a piece on Valentine's Day for a news website here in France. Good morning.
Good morning.
Ginger, perhaps I could start with you. You've been working at the American Church with people who are coming to marry, I understand, on Valentine's Day in Paris.
Yes, it's actually quite common. We don't have any marriages this year because it falls on a Sunday, but we've got a big upswing in the number of marriages the day before and the day after, vow renewals, first-time marriages.
And it's because it's the closest date that they could get to the 14th?
Exactly. It's always our most requested date.
Right, and who are these couples? Where are they coming from?
All over the world, actually. This year, I think, in the sort of days before and after, we have several Japanese couples, a couple from China, Americans, and then a mixed American-French couple as well.
Asia as well?
Asia, mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And is it, is it because for them it's that there's a religious significance to the origins of Valentine's Day, or is it just coincidental?
I think it's not necessarily a religious decision. It's just that France is known or seen as a romantic place, and it's considered the most romantic day of the year. And so people want to be in Paris for Valentine's Day and want to be married. And
are you getting record numbers then this time?
This year, because of the Sunday, not particularly, but it usually is our most requested day.
Mm-hmm. Iris, you've just been writing about this. What's your main sort of, well, if I may say, theory about Valentine's Day?
Why people are doing that?
Yeah.
I think that it's become a thing that you really have to do. So it has become some kind of national duty to do it. So people do it because you have to buy something for your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, and if you don't do it, the other may be very disappointed, and yeah. And it's pretty commercial, I think, because...
So were you criticising the fact that there is this pressure, basically, in your article?
There is a lot of pressure, actually, because people will ask you, so what have you done on Valentine's Day? And if you say nothing special, and especially if you don't have a partner, you really might feel lonely and unhappy.
You said national duty. Is that referring to, I mean, you're German, but you're talking about France here when you say national duty. So you've observed that there's a lot of pressure here, like in where you come from.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing in Germany and France, and maybe in whole Europe, that it has become something to do.
What do you think? A national duty?
You know, actually, it's interesting. Historically, France at one point banned Valentine's Day celebrations in its sort of pre-Christian state because they were too disruptive, that there were too many sort of single people running around getting jealous of one another, too many hearts broken, and it was considered too disruptive. So parts of the court actually banned the celebration of Valentine's Day for exactly the reasons that we're talking about.
Well, I didn't understand why. Because how do you mean jealousies? Because some people were single and others weren't, or what?
Oh, I think it was just a boy would like this girl and not that one, and then families would get involved, and it would turn into this giant mess, and everyone would end up madder at each other than they were when they started. And so France actually at one point did ban celebrations around the 14th and 15th of February, but there was something that made them want to bring it back. So I think there's money could be a piece of it, sure, but I think there is something in us and human beings that wants to take a time to celebrate the people we care about. And there are worse things than that, I think.
But when you say that, I mean, to care about, it's still, it's not really something you do to, I mean, it's caring for someone that you're romantically involved with, it's easy to say it should be a day. I mean, you sometimes hear people say it should be a day to show your love in general for people you care about in general, but it doesn't really work like that.
No, it's true. It tends to be people you're romantically involved with, and I think there are worse things than having a day where you focus on that relationship.
What did you argue about that in your... I mean, the crux of your article is it a good thing or not that there is this pressure?
I think it's a bad thing, and the people I interviewed for my article, they feel the same way, because I, for example, interviewed a lady who is single and who always feels unhappy on Valentine's Day, and I think it's not necessary, because if you care about someone, you don't need a special day to show it. You should show it the whole year, and not, oh, now it's
well, I suppose
Valentine's
it's a bit
Day.
like Mother's Day, which also you could say you should show, you know, your affection for your parents all round the year. But I mean, would you take it a step above what it is now and actually make into... I mean, should it be a proper holiday?
I'm all for any addition to the schedule of proper holidays, but I think, sure, at worst, any holiday can be a moment for atoning for previous neglect. But I think it's nice to have a day when you focus on your romantic relationship, even if you are diligent the rest of the year.
Well, what about the... I mean, can you tell us a bit more about the origins? 'Cause you seem to know quite a lot about that, Ginger. How did this all start in the first few centuries when this existed?
It was actually a Roman pagan holiday. February 15th falls sort of halfway between the winter solstice and the beginning of spring. And so it was a day when the Romans seemed to have thought that it was a day of optimum fertility, and they also thought it was the day that birds mated for some reason. And so when they came over to the British Isles, they brought the holiday with them. And then as Christianity came through, we have this habit of appropriating pagan holidays. So it became associated with a British saint.
Right, and then what happened?
And then, so this saint, we're not really sure who he was, but he seemed to have been associated with pairing up single men and women.
Well, yeah, because there were quite a few Saint Valentines, weren't there?
Exactly. We're not really sure which one the day is named after.
Right, because the records are not
not
really
particularly
clear
good.
from that.
No, not at all.
From that period.
Right. But it gradually sort of spread from the British Isles after that.
How is it in America? I mean, we sometimes talk of this sort of spreading as it's essentially as an Anglo-Saxon idea that when it became commercial, of course, it's absolutely huge in your face in my country, in Britain.
Sure.
What's it like in America, and what's the influence been from there into Europe, do you think?
I think it's very similar in the U.S. as in the UK. There's a lot of pressure to buy flowers and candy and go out for a nice dinner. And it seems like that's sort of coming over to France more and more, so much like Halloween. I think at its best, it's a moment to spend time together, a moment to celebrate a relationship, and at its worst, it's a enforced expensive dinner.
Any comments from you?
I agree.
Well, so what about, I mean, when you were writing this story, you were interviewing people in shops and so on. What sort of, what did they tell you about how good it was for sales? I mean, you've got the January sales which finish, and then
it's
and
enormous.
then you've got this.
It's really enormous. I interviewed a shop owner, and she told me that Valentine's Day represents 25% of her annual benefit. So that's a lot, I think. So you really can see that it's pretty commercial.
Yeah, and it's the same in your country as well.
Yeah, same thing, same pressure. Yeah.
Any final comments?
I think the best Valentine's Days I've had haven't involved buying anything.
Haven't involved buying anything.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. You don't have to comment on that. I think we should probably end this here, but thank you very much for your time, both of you. Ginger Strickland from the American Church in Paris and freelance journalist Iris Hartl for this Valentine's Day Face-Off. We'll be back on Monday for another edition of Face-Off. Do stay with us here on France 24.